Tom lived a quiet life on the colony station called Haven 12. The station was not very large compared to the main hubs, but it was home for many humans who wanted peace away from crowded Earth. Tom liked the silence, the slow pace, and the chance to grow small plants in his personal dome garden. His days usually began with the same routine: waking up to the hum of the station engines, preparing a simple meal, then heading to the small repair shop he owned. Life was calm, almost predictable. One morning, that calm life changed when his doorbell rang. Tom opened the door and found two officials standing in front of him. One was human, dressed in the uniform of the Colony Council, and the other was a tall alien with smooth blue skin and narrow golden eyes. They both carried serious expressions. The human official held out a tablet and said, "Tom, you have been chosen for the cultural exchange program. From today, an alien aide will be assigned to your household." Tom blinked, unsure if he had heard right. "Wait, an aide? What do you mean by that?" The alien official nodded slowly. "Her name is Lyra. She will arrive shortly. She is trained, disciplined, and sworn to serve you in the role that humans describe as Maid." "Maid?" Tom repeated, confused. He thought of cleaning, cooking, maybe small household chores. "I didn't sign up for this. I don't need a maid." The human official smiled in a rehearsed way. "It is not optional. The exchange program was approved by the Council to strengthen relations between our species. Please accept her presence. She will be no trouble." Before Tom could argue further, he noticed movement behind the officials. A figure stepped forward. She was tall, with grayish-silver hair tied neatly, her posture straight like a soldier standing at attention. Her clothing was plain but sharp, marked with symbols he did not understand. Her golden eyes locked on him without blinking. "I am Lyra," she said in a calm voice. "From this day, I serve you as your maid. This is my duty and my honor." Tom stood frozen at the doorway. The word maid sounded odd coming from her mouth. There was no trace of casual friendliness in her tone. She spoke like someone taking an oath. The officials gave him a short farewell and left quickly, leaving Tom with the alien woman who now stood inside his home. She looked around the small apartment as if inspecting it for flaws. Her gaze lingered on the corners, the doors, and even the window locks. She nodded once, then turned back to him. "Your dwelling is secure," she said. "I will keep it that way." Tom rubbed the back of his neck. Thanks. "But you don't really have to," she interrupted, her voice steady. "It is my role. I will handle all tasks needed. I will prepare your meals, maintain your home, and most important, ensure your safety." Tom sighed. He had expected maybe someone friendly to share culture with, exchange recipes, or learn new customs. Instead, he had been given someone who looked ready for battle. Still, he did not want to offend her. "All right then. You can stay. But really, you don't need to go overboard. This is just a quiet station." Lyra gave a short bow. "I will not fail." The rest of the day felt strange for Tom. When he sat at his small desk to eat lunch, she stood 2 steps behind him, silent, watching the door. When he went to check on his plants, she followed, scanning the area as if enemies might leap from behind the leaves. When he left for his repair shop, she walked beside him, her eyes sharp, her steps measured. The neighbors noticed at once. Some waved at Tom with teasing smiles. Others whispered, pointing at Lyra as she moved like a bodyguard rather than a maid. Tom tried to laugh it off, but inside, he felt uneasy. Was this really what the council meant by cultural exchange? That night, Tom sat in his chair, sipping warm tea. Lyra stood near the window, hands folded, still alert. He cleared his throat. You know, this is supposed to be just a simple arrangement. Maybe you can relax a little. She turned her head slightly, her golden eyes calm but firm. To relax is to fail. I will not allow harm to reach you. This is my oath. Tom leaned back, staring at her. She did not seem like a maid at all. She was something else, something far more serious. He could not help but wonder what he had gotten himself into. That night, as the engines of Haven 12 hummed softly in the background, Tom realized that his peaceful and quiet life was gone. An alien maid had entered his world, and she was not just here to dust shelves. She had taken the role too seriously, and he had no idea what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, Tom woke up earlier than usual. He usually enjoyed a slow start, letting the hum of the colony station ease him into the day. But this time, something felt different. He could hear movement outside his bedroom. Soft, careful steps. He stepped out and saw Lyra already awake, standing near the main door of his home. She was in the same posture as the night before, straight, focused, her golden eyes scanning the hallway. In her hands, she carried a small device that looked like a scanner. She glanced at him only briefly. "Perimeter secure," she said calmly. Tom rubbed his eyes. "Perimeter? This isn't a battlefield. It's just an apartment." Her expression did not change. "Every home is a possible target. Every path must be safe." He sighed, deciding not to argue this early in the morning. Instead, he went to the kitchen for a simple breakfast. Normally, he would toast bread and heat water for tea. But as soon as he reached for the cupboard, Lyra stepped forward. "I will prepare your meal," she said, already moving with quick, precise motions. She took out the bread, scanned the water, and placed everything neatly on the counter. She even tasted the water first, as if checking for poison. Tom watched, wide-eyed. "You really don't have to test everything. The water comes from the main supply. It's safe." "Safe is not enough," she replied firmly. "I must be certain." By the time Tom sat down, the simple meal looked like something carefully inspected and arranged by a professional. Lyra did not sit to eat with him. Instead, she stood near his chair, hands folded behind her back, watching him like a guard on duty. He tried to make light conversation. "So, have you ever done this before? Serving as someone's maid?" "Yes," she answered. "On my home world, I served as protector to our leaders. My people train from childhood to fulfill this duty. We are placed with those we must guard, and we stay by their side until the end." Tom blinked. "Wait. Protector? But they told me you were assigned as a maid." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as though the word itself felt strange to her. "Your people used that term. To us, the word is different. It means loyalty, defense, service, and sacrifice. It does not mean simple housework." The truth clicked in Tom's mind. The whole program was built on a translation mistake. What the Colony Council called a maid was actually a bodyguard sworn to protect at all costs. That explained everything: her posture, her scanning, her refusal to relax. To her, this was no small job. This was a lifelong mission. Later that day, Tom had to head to his repair shop. It was a short walk across the colony corridors. Normally, he liked greeting neighbors, stopping to chat, and enjoying the easy rhythm of life. With Lyra by his side, things changed. She walked half a step behind him, her sharp gaze moving left and right. People stared as they passed. Some whispered. One man chuckled and called out, "Hey Tom, did you hire a guard or a shadow?" Tom forced a laugh, embarrassed. "Just part of the exchange program." The man raised his eyebrows. "Well, looks like you got the serious type." Inside the shop, Tom tried to settle into his usual work repairing a broken panel brought in by a neighbor. But every few minutes, Lyra inspected the room, scanning walls, checking vents, even glancing at customers in a way that made them uncomfortable. A woman who came in to pick up her repaired lamp quickly left, mumbling that she would return another time. Tom frowned. "You're scaring off customers. Could you maybe ease up?" Lyra turned to him with calm certainty. "Your safety comes before all else. If they are uneasy, it is because they sense my readiness. That is good. Fear prevents betrayal." Tom set down his tools, exhaling heavily. She truly believed every stranger could be a threat. For him, Haven 12 had always been safe. For her, it was a place filled with unknown dangers. By evening, Tom felt exhausted not from work, but from the constant presence of Lyra's sharp attention. When they returned home, he dropped into his chair. "Lyra, listen. I know you take your role seriously, but I don't think anyone here is trying to attack me. You don't have to check every corner." She looked at him without blinking. "Danger does not announce itself. It hides. If I relax, even for a moment, harm may come. I cannot allow that." Her voice carried no doubt, no hesitation. She truly believed in what she said. Tom leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He realized that trying to convince her to change was not going to be easy. To her, this was not just a job, it was her life's purpose. As the station lights dimmed for night cycle, Tom thought about how his life had been before she arrived: simple, calm, quiet. That life was already gone. With Lyra in his home, every day would now feel like a mission. And the strange part was, even though it was uncomfortable, a small part of him wondered if maybe she was right. The following days passed in a way Tom had never experienced before. Wherever he went, Lyra was a constant presence. If he walked through the market, she stayed at his side, scanning each face that passed. If he worked in the shop, she stood near the doorway, watching every customer. If he tried to relax in the garden dome, she circled the plants as if enemies might jump out from behind the leaves. At first, Tom thought it was simply her being overly dedicated, but he soon realized it was deeper than that. She was not just working hard. She was living by rules written deep into her heart. One evening, while they sat in the small dining space of his home, Tom decided he had to speak clearly. "Lyra, we need to talk. I appreciate your help, but I think there's a misunderstanding. When humans say maid, it usually means someone who cooks, cleans, or helps around the house. It doesn't mean bodyguard." Lyra tilted her head slightly, her golden eyes steady. "On my world, the word does not exist. Our closest meaning is one who binds their life to another. The bond is loyalty. The duty is protection. This is what I was trained for." Tom shook his head slowly. "But I don't need that. This colony is safe. I don't want you to feel you must fight for me. You should just live here, maybe share your customs, maybe learn ours." Her jaw tightened. For the first time since she had arrived, her voice carried a small edge. To abandon my duty is shame. To refuse service is betrayal. You may not value my oath, but I cannot break it. If I stop, then who am I? The words struck Tom harder than he expected. He saw no pride in her tone, only a deep truth she carried within. To her, service was not just a task, it was her identity. Without it, she would feel lost. Tom leaned back, thinking of his own people. On Earth, being independent was praised. People wanted freedom, to live how they wished. But in Lyra's culture, it seemed the highest honor was to give oneself completely to another. The clash was clear. Two worlds, two very different ways of thinking. The next day, the tension became more obvious. Tom had invited a few neighbors to share tea and talk about small repairs around the colony. It was supposed to be casual, but with Lyra in the room, no one felt at ease. She stood against the wall, her arms folded, her eyes fixed on every movement. One neighbor tried to joke. "Tom, your maid looks more ready to throw someone out the window than serve tea." The others laughed, but the laughter was nervous. Tom forced a smile. "Yeah, she takes her job very seriously." Lyra did not laugh. She simply replied, "If harm comes to him, I will stop it." The table went silent. The neighbors quickly finished their tea and left soon after. Tom sat down heavily, covering his face with his hands. "You scared them away, Lyra. They think I'm hiding something dangerous here." She stood calmly, her face unchanged. "If they cannot accept my presence, they are not worthy of your trust." Tom groaned. "That's not how it works. Friends aren't enemies. You don't need to test everyone." Her reply was simple. "All must be tested. That is the way." Tom realized then that the problem was bigger than a translation mistake. It was about culture. To Lyra, testing others, standing guard, and being serious all the time was natural. To humans, it looked strange, even frightening. That night, Tom tried to rest, but his mind kept circling back to the same thought. Could he really live with someone who saw the world so differently? Could they ever understand each other? But as he lay awake, he heard Lyra's quiet steps in the living room. She was still awake, still guarding. For all her seriousness, she had never once complained. She had chosen this role with pride, and she meant every word she had spoken. Tom sighed into the darkness. She was not just a maid. She was something far more complicated. And though their cultures clashed at every turn, he could not deny that part of him felt oddly safe for the first time in years. Tom thought life with Lyra could not get any stranger, but the colony soon reminded him that peace never lasted forever. Haven 12 was a small place, but it was also a stop for travelers, merchants, and sometimes people who did not follow the rules. Most of the time, Tom ignored those problems. He repaired machines, helped neighbors, and kept his life simple. But one evening, everything changed. He was walking back from his shop after closing. The corridor was quieter than usual, the long strip lights above humming softly. Lyra walked half a step behind him as always, silent and watchful. Tom tried to make light conversation, but she gave short answers, her focus clearly elsewhere. As they turned into a narrow side hall leading to his home, Tom noticed three figures leaning against the wall. They were rough-looking men, not dressed like ordinary workers. Their clothes were patched, and their eyes carried the sharpness of people who lived by bending rules. One of them stepped forward with a crooked grin. "You're Tom, right? The human who fixes machines." Tom slowed down. "Yeah. That's me." Do I know you? The man shook his head. Not yet. But we know you. You've been fixing panels for the council, helping them keep things running smooth. That's a problem for us. Tom frowned, confused. A problem? I just do repairs. The second man sneered. Repairs keep the council happy. The council doesn't pay us when things break. You're cutting into our business. Before Tom could respond, Lyra stepped forward, placing herself between him and the men. Her golden eyes narrowed, and her voice turned sharp. Leave now. The men laughed. What's this? You bring a bodyguard with you. Lyra did not flinch. She scanned each of them with quick precision, her posture steady like steel. You will not touch him. Tom raised his hands nervously. Look, I don't want trouble. I'll just. The first man moved closer, pointing a finger at Tom. Stay out of council work, human. Or next time, we'll make sure you regret it. Before the finger could come any nearer, Lyra's hand shot out like lightning. She grabbed the man's wrist and twisted it behind his back in one smooth motion. He cried out in pain, his knees buckling. The other two men jumped forward, but Lyra was faster. She stepped aside, kicked one in the leg so hard he stumbled, then used her elbow to strike the other in the chest. Both staggered back, gasping for air. It all happened so fast that Tom could barely process it. One moment the men were threatening, the next they were on the ground, groaning and clutching themselves. Lyra stood tall, not even out of breath. She released the first man, who scrambled backward to join his friends. Her voice was calm but firm. Leave. Do not return. If you threaten him again, you will not walk away. The three men glared at her, but fear had entered their eyes. Without another word, they retreated down the corridor, limping as they went. Tom stood frozen, his heart racing. He turned to Lyra, his voice shaky. What was that? You could have really hurt them. She looked at him, her face steady. I stopped them. They would have harmed you. That is not allowed. Tom rubbed his forehead. But this is a colony. We have rules. We have guards for this kind of thing. Her answer came without hesitation. By the time guards arrive, you would already be broken. I cannot depend on them. I am here. I act. That is the only way. As they walked the rest of the way home, Tom felt a storm of emotions. He was grateful she had protected him. At the same time, he felt uneasy. Her actions had been swift, precise, and frightening. She had not hesitated for even a second. When they reached his apartment, Tom sank into a chair. Lyra, I don't know what to say. You scared them away, but you also scared me. I've never seen anyone move like that. She stood near the door, her eyes still sharp. You are alive. That is enough. Tom sighed deeply. You don't understand. Humans, we're not used to that. We talk first. We try to avoid fights. When you act like that, people will think we're dangerous. They'll think I'm dangerous just because you're with me. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a quieter voice, she replied, I will learn your ways. But I will not allow harm. Even if it makes others fear me. Tom looked at her, unsure how to answer. She was more than just a maid. She was a protector, a warrior, and now, perhaps the reason others would treat him differently. He wondered if this was truly a gift from the council, or if it was a burden disguised as help. Still, Deep inside, he could not ignore one truth. Without her, he might not have walked home safely that night. The next morning, Tom woke with a heavy feeling in his chest. The memory of the previous night's fight stayed in his mind. He could still see Lyra moving like a storm, striking the men down with no hesitation. He knew she had saved him, but the speed and power she showed unsettled him. As he walked into the kitchen, he found Lyra already standing near the counter. She had prepared his breakfast and was waiting, as always, in her calm posture. Her golden eyes softened slightly when she saw him. "Your food is ready," she said. Tom sat down, but his appetite was weak. He pushed the bread around on the plate and finally spoke. "Lyra, we need to talk about last night." She stood still, silent, her face unreadable. "You fought those men like they were enemies in a war," Tom continued. "They were just trying to scare me. I know they were troublemakers, but they weren't trying to kill me. You could have hurt them badly." Lyra's reply came steady and without regret. "If I had not acted, you would have been in danger. My task is not to measure levels of threat. My task is to stop harm before it reaches you." Tom sighed and pressed his hands to his forehead. "That's the problem. You see danger everywhere. But sometimes people are just angry. Sometimes they talk tough, but it doesn't mean they're going to attack. You can't solve everything with strength." Her jaw tightened. "To hesitate is to fail. If I had waited, they would have struck. My oath does not allow me to gamble with your safety." The silence between them grew thick. Tom felt the weight of her words. He knew she believed every part of what she said. Still, he could not shake the fear that her seriousness would draw even more trouble. People were already whispering about him, and the colony guards might start asking questions. Finally, he stood up. "Lyra, listen. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want someone to live every second of my life watching over me. You've done more than I ever expected, but I don't want you risking yourself for me anymore. You should live your own life, not tie yourself to mine." For the first time, Lyra's expression broke. Her eyes widened slightly, and her breath caught. She looked as if he had struck her with the harshest words possible. "You would dismiss me?" she asked quietly. Tom hesitated. He had not meant it to sound so cruel. "I just don't want you trapped. You deserve freedom. You deserve to choose what you want, not what some council assigned." Her hands tightened into fists at her sides. "You do not understand. To serve is my freedom. To protect is my choice. If you release me, you take away my honor. You strip me of who I am." Tom's heart sank. He had not expected this. He thought she might be relieved, maybe even glad to step away from the endless duty. But instead, she looked wounded, almost betrayed. The rest of the day passed in silence. Tom went to his repair shop alone, asking Lyra to stay behind. She obeyed, but the way she lowered her head before stepping back made him feel worse. He worked half-heartedly, distracted by the memory of her voice. When he returned home, the apartment felt colder than usual. Lyra was there, but she did not speak. She stood near the window, staring out into the colony lights, her shoulders stiff. Tom wanted to say something, but the words would not come. That night, as he lay in bed, Tom could hear her quiet steps moving in the other room. She was still guarding, still watching, even after his harsh words. She had not abandoned her role, even though he had tried to release her. Tom turned onto his side, guilt heavy in his chest. he realized he had made a mistake. He had spoken without truly understanding her heart. To him, freedom meant walking away from duty. To her, freedom meant giving everything to her duty. They were not the same, but both ways were true in their own worlds. He closed his eyes, knowing the rift between them would not heal easily. Still, one thought gave him comfort. Lyra had not left. She was still there, still standing watch. Maybe that meant there was hope for them to understand each other after all. The rift between Tom and Lyra lingered for days. Tom tried to work as usual, but the silence in his home weighed on him. Lyra still performed her duties, but she spoke little. She guarded the door, scanned the windows, and checked the food as always, but now her movements felt colder, like she was acting only from duty, not from the quiet pride she once carried. Tom wanted to fix things, but he did not know how. Each time he tried to speak, the words failed him. He wondered if their bond had already cracked beyond repair. Then the threat arrived. It started with alarms echoing across Haven 12. Tom was in his shop when the sharp sound cut through the hum of the engines. People ran through the corridors, faces pale with fear. He looked up at the nearest screen, which displayed urgent text from the Colony Council. Hostile raider ship detected in orbit. All civilians stay indoors. Tom's stomach twisted. Haven 12 was peaceful, but raiders sometimes prowled the outer systems. They attacked small colonies, looted supplies, and left chaos behind. Tom rushed to close his shop and ran home. He expected Lyra to be waiting, and she was standing at the door with her eyes sharp and her posture like stone. "It is as I feared," she said. "Danger has come." Tom's voice shook. "What are we going to do?" "The council will call the guards, right?" "The guards will defend, yes," Lyra replied, "but raiders strike quickly. They may break through before help arrives. We must act with care." She placed a small device in his hands. It was a communicator linked to the colony's emergency line. "Keep this with you. If we are separated, call the council shelter." Tom looked at her. "You're planning to fight, aren't you?" She did not deny it. "If they come near this home, yes. It is my oath." Fear clawed at Tom, but this time he did not tell her to stop. He remembered the men in the corridor, how fast she had moved, how precise she had been. And now, unlike before, the threat was real. Raiders would not hesitate to harm him. The first wave of chaos struck soon after. The station shook slightly as the raider ship fired warning blasts at the outer hull. Lights flickered. Distant shouts filled the corridors as people hurried to safe zones. Then Tom's communicator buzzed. A trembling voice from the council spoke. "All citizens must move to shelter points. Raiders may attempt boarding. Stay calm and follow instructions." Tom's heart pounded. He turned to Lyra. "We should go to the shelter." But she shook her head. "The shelters may already be targets. Raiders often strike them first to capture large groups. We will protect here. I will hold them, you will think." "Think?" Tom asked, confused. She nodded firmly. "You are human. Your kind finds answers where others see none. I will fight with my body. You will fight with your mind." Before Tom could answer, the power flickered again. The screen on the wall went black, then red warning lights lit the hall. Somewhere above them, metal groaned as docking clamps were forced open. The raiders were boarding. Tom felt panic rising, but Lyra's calm steadiness grounded him. She moved with purpose, securing the door with heavy locks and activating a defense panel built into her arm. It glowed faintly, forming a shield device. Suddenly, the sound of heavy boots echoed down the corridor. Raiders were close. Tom's hands trembled. He had no weapons, no training, only his quick thinking. He looked at the systems panel by the door and had an idea. "Lyra," he whispered, "if we reroute the power through the ventilation grid, we can overload the lights in this corridor. It'll blind them." She glanced at him, eyes flashing with approval. "Do it. I will strike when they cannot see." Tom worked quickly, pulling open the panel and crossing wires with shaking fingers. Sparks flew, and for a moment he thought he had failed. Then, just as the raiders stormed into the hall, the lights above burst into a bright flash. The men cried out, covering their faces. Lyra moved like a shadow, striking with speed. She swept their legs, knocked weapons aside, and forced them back. Tom finished sealing the ventilation, sending smoke into the hall to add confusion. The raiders, stunned and disoriented, retreated, shouting in frustration. Tom and Lyra stood together in the dim light, their breaths heavy. For the first time since she had arrived, Tom felt like they were not just maid and master, not just protector and human. They were partners. His mind and her skill had combined into something stronger. When the colony guards finally arrived, the raiders had already retreated to their ship, chased off by resistance from both the guards and unexpected actions like Tom's. Haven 12 was safe, though shaken. As the alarms faded, Tom looked at Lyra. "We did it. Together." Her eyes softened for the first time in days. "Yes. Together. This is the bond one hoped for." Tom realized then that maybe he had been wrong before. She did not need to stop being herself. She only needed him to stand beside her, not against her. And in that moment, the rift between them began to heal. When the alarms finally went silent and the colony returned to uneasy calm, Tom and Lyra sat in his small living space. The corridor still smelled faintly of smoke from the wires Tom had burned, and his hands bore small marks from where sparks had stung him. Yet he felt strangely lighter, as though a great weight had been lifted. For the first time since Lyra had entered his life, he did not see her only as an alien maid who took her duty too far. He saw her as someone who had chosen to stand beside him, someone who valued his part as much as her own. "You fought like lightning out there," Tom said, his voice quiet but filled with respect. Lyra turned her head, her eyes steady. "And you thought like fire. Quick, bright, and dangerous. If you had not acted, I would not have won alone. You saw what I could not." The words touched Tom more deeply than he expected. He had always seen himself as ordinary. A man who repaired machines, sold spare parts, and lived quietly. Yet in that moment of crisis, he had proved himself useful beyond his trade. Silence hung for a moment, not heavy like before, but thoughtful. At last, Tom leaned forward. "Lyra, I think I understand now. You are not just protecting me because some council ordered it. You believe it is your duty, your way of living. I should not have tried to stop you from being who you are. I just wanted peace, but I see now peace is not only silence and safety. It is also trust, knowing someone will stand with you when danger comes." Her expression softened, and a quiet warmth entered her voice. "Yes. You begin to see as I hoped. My people believe service is not weakness. Service is strength. To serve is to give, and to give is to bind lives together. When I was assigned here, I thought my role was simple: guard, clean, watch. But I see now it is more. You give me purpose, and I give you protection. Together we make something greater. Tom smiled faintly. Then maybe it was not a mistake they sent you here. Maybe it was exactly right. The days that followed were filled with work repairing the damage to Haven 12. Raiders had left scorch marks on the outer hull, and many shops had broken panels or burned wires. Tom threw himself into helping neighbors fix their machines and systems. To his surprise, people looked at him differently now. You helped fight them off, one mechanic said with admiration. Word spread about what you and your maid did. Tom tried to shrug it off, but the truth was, pride stirred inside him. He had not been a hero, not in the way stories told of brave fighters. But he had played his part, and that was enough. Lyra continued to serve in her own way. She still cleaned, still watched the doors, still checked the food carefully before cooking. But her presence no longer felt overbearing. It felt steady, like a shield always nearby. Tom no longer argued when she stood by the window scanning the stars. Instead, he would bring her a cup of water and stand with her for a while, both silent, both watchful. One evening, as the station's artificial lights dimmed to mimic night, Tom sat with Lyra at the small table. He had been thinking all day about what to say. Finally, he spoke. You know, when you first came, I thought you were too serious. I even thought you were ruining my quiet life. But now I see the truth. You are serious because you care. And maybe I needed someone serious. Maybe I needed someone to remind me that life is not about hiding from danger, but facing it with someone you can trust. Lyra looked at him carefully, as if weighing his words. Then, slowly, she nodded. Yes. And I see that I cannot only be shield and blade. I must also listen. I must also share silence when silence is needed. This balance is what makes two lives fit together. The simplicity of her words struck him. He realized then that their bond was no longer one of master and maid, nor protector and protected. It was something closer, something equal. The colony moved forward. Repairs were completed, trade ships returned, and the council promised stronger defenses in the future. But among all the changes, the one that mattered most to Tom was the quiet understanding he and Lyra had built. On the final night before the colony held a gathering to celebrate survival, Tom stepped out onto the outer deck of Haven 12. The stars stretched endlessly, a sea of lights. Lyra stood beside him, her posture calm, her eyes sharp as always. He glanced at her and smiled. Do you ever wonder why humans and your people were brought together? She answered without hesitation. Yes. To remind both sides that strength comes in many forms. Alone, you might be small. Alone, I might be too rigid. But together, we are greater. Tom breathed in the cool recycled air and let her words sink in. He no longer felt like an ordinary man with an unwanted guardian. He felt like part of something larger, a bond that might outlast even the colony itself. The stars above shimmered quietly, and for the first time in a long while, Tom felt not only safe but also ready for whatever came next. Beside him, Lyra stood steady, her role clear, her bond unbroken. No longer just a maid, no longer just a protector. She was his partner in a universe that held both danger and wonder. And that was enough.